Yo, what's going on? I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I know it's been a minute. Your boy been having a lot going on. I could just do a whole episode where I just tell stories about crazy things that happen. But I chaperoned my son's high school senior trip, which was interesting. It provided some clarity on things that I already knew to be true. One, these generations of kids are way smarter than like my generation and probably generations before. But the common sense aspect, I don't know, it's kind of sketch. But in any event, I'm Marcus, the debt free dad. I'm a licensed attorney, and here we talk attorney reactions and finance videos. So I saw a couple of interesting stories that came up while I was on a chaperone excursion because I wouldn't define it as a vacation. But I saw a few interesting stories, and I thought, you know what? I looked into them. They sounded interesting, and I thought they would be great topics to talk about because of the two instances related to fraud, two instances where people are fumbling a major bag and it's going to cost money. As always, the disclaimer: I'm a licensed attorney in multiple places. None of those places amount to me being your counsel. So if you need legal, financial advice, any of that stuff, seek a professional in your area. And if you get any value from this content, definitely make sure you hit the subscribe button, like the video, share, comment, interact. It's all appreciated. And all of that stuff is the best price that anything could be. Is absolutely free. Your boy not gonna sell you nothing, but I am appreciative of your support. Now, which one should we start out with? Because I got a poll question up and I want y'all to chime in because I need to know which one of these instances of fraud is stupider. Which one is the absolute worst? So we're going to queue up a video, then I'm going to go through a detailed article. I think we're going to start with NBA because both of these topics dealing with people who got NBA. One associated with the National Basketball Association, and the other one associated with the name Never Broke Again. So we're gonna check this out. Let's go ahead and queue up this first video. Then we're gonna dive into this uh, article. This video gonna be like crazy short.
We're learning new developments tonight on the case of rapper NBA Youngboy. His pretrial release hearing regarding the prescription drug case is scheduled for next Monday. The 24-year-old rapper, whose real name is Kentrell Deshaun Galden, he's facing 63 charges in connection to the case. Deputies with the Cache County Sheriff's Office arrested Galden last week. According to jail records, he's being held without bail.
All right. That was short and sweet because I couldn't find a video that went as in depth as we need to go to really see the stupidity associated with this. But before we dive in, let me give a little background on NBA Youngboy because he actually is a pretty impressive artist. If y'all aren't familiar with him, I know who he is, but I've never heard like I don't know. I maybe heard like one or two of his songs, but you don't hear his stuff played on the radio. He barely performs because he gets a substantial amount of his revenue from streaming. Now, like they said in the video, this dude is looking at 63 charges. These are all state charges, all related to most related to healthcare fraud. Now, essentially, some background, he really dominates the streaming market. That's where he makes the vast majority of his money. On the Hot 100 over the past like 4 years, this dude had a song on the Hot 100 96 times. In 2022, this dude only trailed two people in overall music streams. Y'all would never believe it. Y'all would never guess it. But this dude trailed Drake and Taylor Swift. He was literally number 3 in 2022 and having his music streamed. But hey, as much of a financial success and hip hop success as Never Broke Again Young Boy is, he does have some legal troubles, have had some troubles in the past, and I got to discuss those because it's going to be relevant when we talk about these new charges. In 2016, let's see, in 2016, he was accused of shooting at a group of people out on South Baton Rouge Street. He was charged with 2 counts of attempted murder. He ended up pleading guilty to a lesser charge of aggravated assault with a firearm. He received a 10-year suspended sentence with 3 years of probation. In 2019, while on probation, someone shot at Youngboy's vehicle. He shot back. The charges were ultimately dismissed, but he did violate a special term of his probation, and that special condition mandated that he couldn't hang out with select individuals. These two individuals were persons who were involved with him in the 2016 shooting that had occurred. Fast forward to 2020, Youngboy and 15 others were indicted on drug and weapon charges after filming a record video in Baton Rouge. That matter is still pending. And in 2021, he asked a federal judge if he could be released to spend time in Utah. Now I know that sounds wild because you'd be like, why would Utah is probably one of the funnest cities and most beautiful places I've ever visited in the United States. But you would ask, why would a rapper from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who let's just say he got a wild background when we just look at the criminal history, why would he want to go to Utah? Well, apparently he spent some time in Utah through a youth program. He built up a relationship with a family there. So he wanted to go spend some time in Utah. The judge ended up allowing this move. It allowed him to stay at his residence in Utah and receive mental health treatment. Now, I did take a look at the probable cause affidavit associated with these 63 state charges, and it was a gang of stuff on it. Weapon charges, 20 counts of identity fraud, 20 counts of forgery, possession of a controlled substance. It was, of the 63 charges, a lot of them are repetitive for multiple conduct that is alleged to have happened over a substantial amount of time. But I did find an article that will really break it down because one, on a complex meter for fraud, this is very low. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, this is like a -2. But I just want y'all to get the details so y'all can really evaluate the, I guess, sheer foolishness associated with this matter. So let's go through this article. NBA Youngboy orchestrated a large-scale prescription fraud scheme, Utah police say. Rapper NBA Youngboy and several of his associates orchestrated a large-scale prescription fraud ring to illegally obtain prescription drugs from multiple Utah area pharmacies, police allege. And all the things that they tried to get is anything that you've ever heard Future rap about, that's what they were trying to get. An affidavit filed Thursday by an officer for the Cache County Sheriff Office named the rapper born Kentrell Golden as the primary suspect in a month-long scheme that involved posing as a doctor to fill prescriptions for promethazine with codeine, a controlled substance, in pharmacies in cities including Hiram, Logan, and Smithfield. The affidavit was filed 2 days after Golden, 24, was arrested Tuesday evening on 63 charges, including counts of identity fraud, forgery, procuring and attempting to procure prescription drugs. Court documents reviewed by the Times said. A legal representative for Golden, also known as NBA Youngboy never broke again, did not comment to the Times on Friday. Now, this is where we kind of get into it, and we talk about people trying to disguise their voice, and the shit got real ridiculous. But let's go ahead and dive in. Filed by the Cache County officer Tyson Nielsen, the affidavit outlines multiple instances dating from September 2023 to February of 2024 of alleged identity fraud and attempts to obtain promethazine with codeine, a key ingredient used to make cough syrup laced drink, commonly known as lean purple drink and scissor. It's funny how scissor is a hyperlink. Like, I wonder if I click on it, will it go to Snoop? Hold on, I gotta click on this real quick. Okay, that's funny. It shows Lil Wayne. That's hilarious. All right. So Scissor. All right. On September 19th, 2023, two pharmacies in Cache County area received a prescription order from a person claiming to be a physician in Provo. Provo is a dope city right outside of Utah. The person allegedly posing as the physician provided a valid identifying information and requested to fill a prescription for two patients in their 70s, Bethel White, Betty White, and Gwendolyn Cox. In both instances, the real physicians, who was not identified, told the pharmacies that he did not have any patients whose name matches, and said the names and credentials are being used fraudulently. All right, real quick, let me give y'all some details. Because hey, healthcare fraud, that's perfect. I know all about this stuff. But essentially, if you're authorized to prescribe medication, you have what's called a DEA number. There's a bunch of different things, but most people call it one thing is a DEA number. A DEA number is an identification that the Drug Enforcement Agency, the government, has that associates a physician, someone who can prescribe drugs, with the drugs that they are receiving and actually prescribing. Normally, how it works is physicians have a DEA number, but their practice also has their own DEA number. So if I'm Dr. DFD, I can use my DEA number to fill prescriptions, or if I have my own practice, I can use that DEA number associated with the practice. So when they talked about the identifying information that was fraudulently used from the doctors, they're talking about they gave the pharmacists these doctors' DEA numbers, and those were correct. But credit to the doctors. The doctors was like, yo, we don't got any patients like this. Something sketch is going on. Okay. A third fraudulent prescription. Hold on. Let's see. All right, real quick. A third fraudulent prescription for the same drug was allegedly called into a Smithfield pharmacy on January 17th, 2024. This is ridiculous. Again, by the suspect identifying as the physician. The prescription was for a patient named Gwendolyn Cox, Gwendolyn Cox, not Gwendolyn Cox, with a different birthday. Pharmacists were suspicious about the request and attempted to reach the physician, but the call was disconnected. The affidavit says the real physician later confirmed to the Smithfield pharmacy that he did not place the order and did not have a patient named Gwendolyn Cox. So now you got a Gwendolyn Cox. You got a Betty White, Bethel White. It's getting real ridiculous with the names, but it gets dumber. According to the documents, Nielsen began investigating the alleged fraud scheme amid the January incident. Two women, two women allegedly arrived in a white Chevy Tahoe registered in Golden's name. All right, here's where it's about to go south real quick. To pick up the prescriptions for a friend from the Smithfield pharmacy. Cache County police detained the unidentified women, associates 1 and 2. They were later arrested for their alleged involvement in the prescription fraud ring. Nielsen said that amidst his investigation, Gwendolyn Cox requested to get in touch. However, during the conversation, the caller allegedly offered White as a last name instead of Cox. Okay, rule number one, when you telling a lie or committing fraud, you need to have a detailed memory as to what names you're using for what, because this shit is getting ridiculous. All right, so he offered the last name White as a last name instead of Cox and did not provide the full date of birth or home address. During the conversation, okay, this is where it gets fucking ridiculous, okay? Remember, which one is dumber, NBA Youngboy or the NBA player Jontay Porter? All right, so let's go back here. This is where it gets ridiculous. During the conversation with Gwendolyn, it was very clear that a fake voice was being used. Nielsen wrote in the affidavit before citing the caller's pronunciation of ask and ax, which is consistent with the Southern dialect. And it's like how people up here, they don't say mother, they say mother. Oh, my mother and father, they back there chilling. Every region, city has their own dialect. So this officer was really attentive to notice that when this Gwendolyn with the fake ass voice was talking, she didn't say ask, she said ax. And he said, wait, that's associated with a Southern dialect. And this is someone who is purportedly in Utah from Utah. Okay. Let's see. Before citing the caller's pronunciation of ask and ax, which he said is consistent with the Southern dialect in several states, including Golden State of Louisiana. Court documents detail the alleged conversation between Nielsen and Golden and the rapper's brother, Associate 3, which included inquiries about the prescription medication for Gwendolyn Cox. The affidavit also listed a handful of fraudulent activity under the Provo physician name. All of them were prescription requests for promethazine and codeine for patients in their late 60s and 70s across Utah pharmacies. Several of the names and repeats, including combinations of first and last name with different birthdays, Nielsen said. The affidavit continued. Uh, Throughout the evaluation of the fraud incidents, it is clear that there are numerous individuals involved to further the fraud scheme, identified as an enterprise. The ongoing fraud and suspected drug distribution occurred between Kentrell Golden, NBA Youngboy, and his associates further substantiates the pattern of unlawful activity as they have engaged in at least 3 episodes of unlawful activity that are all similar in purpose, results, participants, victims, and methods of commission. Golden was arrested on Tuesday when Cache County officers executed a search warrant on his Utah mansion. Guests at Golden Homes were also detained. So, hey, this is getting crazy. You got a Southern rapper calling to pharmacies pretending to be a 60 or 70-year-old woman. He's sending 2 of his chicks to go pick up things in the SUV. His brother's involved. And because of his dialect and the fact that I'm sure his voice sounded ridiculous. Can y'all imagine like a famous rapper like Lil Wayne calling to try to sound like Betty White? Like the shit is absurd, and you would easily find it out. So let's go ahead and finish this up. We almost through this. In the home search, so this is where the most of the charges related to the fraud. That's why you see 20 counts of fraud, 20 counts of uh, identity theft, 20 counts of forging documents. They did this 20 times. Every time they did it, they hit them up with charges. But some of the charges occurred from the search of the home and I believe the vehicle. All right, Golden was arrested on Tuesday when Cache County officers executed a search warrant of it on his Utah mansion. Guests at Golden home were also detained. In his home search, police found a gun the rapper claimed belonged to his wife, 2 bottles of the antibiotic doxycycline, one prescribed to Golden and another to a patient named Caroline White, and several bottles of promethazine with codeine. The affidavit says officer also seized all electronic devices in the home for which Golden allegedly did not provide passwords. Nielsen alleged that the Grammy nominated Needed rapper denied knowledge of any illegally possessed prescriptions and fraud schemes. According to the affidavit, Golden's previous run-ins with the law to date in 2018 when he was arrested for allegedly aggravated assault and kidnapping. He was arrested again in 2019 and 2020, which I already covered. In March of 2021, a federal grand jury indicted Golden, accusing the musician of possession of unregistered firearm and of possession of firearm by a convicted felon in connection with his 2020 case. Since October 2021, he has been under house arrest in his home in Weber County. All right, so just a brief background. Right now, he is on house arrest under a federal probation for federal gun charges. So he had federal gun charges. If I'm not mistaken, I think it stemmed from 2 attempted murders that were reduced down to felony possession charges. They gave him a 10-year sentence with 3 years of probation. So he is actively on a federal probation right now when he just received an indictment for these 63 additional state charges. So he's on federal probation. He just got 63 state charges. All right. Let me see. All right, let's go. We're almost through. The affidavit concludes that Golden has participated in an ongoing criminal enterprise and that he's been involved in the commission of multiple felonies. According to the FBI, Cantrell is known as the leader of a violent gang from the Louisiana area. The affidavit continues based on Cantrell's history. It is apparently that he is prone to violence. Blah, blah, blah. 21 Savage, blah, blah, blah. All right. So there's actually a few more details that I want to give on this that actually more ridiculous than I saw when I actually looked at the affidavit. Now, at one point during the execution of the search warrant, this dude made an excited utterance. Now, what is an excited utterance? An excited utterance is one, something that couldn't be used against you in court, but it's when something happens and a person makes a statement that is instantaneously. It is in close proximity with a certain event or circumstances. It's an excited utterance, something that you wouldn't say but for that circumstance happening. And his excited utterance essentially put his foot in his mouth because the officer noted two things. The officer talked to two persons. No, NBA talked to two people at his house and said, "Yo, can you ask the officer about X, Y, and Z?" And the officer immediately noted that he said "ax" and not "ask," which was consistent with the person using the fake ass voice, trying to sound like two old ass ladies, to which the officer identified as a Louisiana dialect. And they also found prescription drugs in the home with the names of Gwendolyn and several other people who were fake ass patients who were used in this fraud scheme. So this dude overall, one, he probably got to get a good ass lawyer to handle this case. But hey, if you would have asked DFD to kind of predict how this is going to turn out, this dude is going to sit down and probably for a while. Well, why is that? Because I want y'all to understand the context. This dude is on a federal probation, 10-year suspended sentence for 3 years of probation. The federal judge let him go to Utah so he can have this house arrest. During that time, he picks up 63 additional criminal charges that are state charges. Now, it is possible that the feds could pick it up. I doubt it. I wouldn't even go through with it personally. But essentially, next week on Tuesday, I believe, he has to go back to federal court to have a bond hearing. What's going to happen at that hearing is this dude got a shitload of new charges, gun charges, fraud charges. It's 99.99999% likely that the judge is going to revoke his ability to actually, stay at home and have this house arrest thing. That's going to be Nick's. He's actually probably going to be in custody. Now, what'll probably happen is I don't think they would revoke him or revoke his probation and make him do that underlying 10-year sentence. What's more likely to happen, no, that's probably what's going to happen. They're going to send this dude back. He's probably going to sit down for that sentence as these other matters play themselves out. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But hey, this dude is kind of screwed, which is terrible because this dude made a lot of money. Like I said, in streaming sales in 2022, he was behind Drake and Taylor Swift. Let's just put that in context. This dude was ahead of Beyonce, ahead of Future, ahead of you name a celebrity, artist, R&B, hip hop. He was ahead of him. So this dude definitely is about to fumble a bag. And on a scale of 1 being stupid and 10 being to super intelligent fraud scheme, this is like a -2 when you're as a rapper or caller trying to imitate old ass people. Now we have to compare and contrast this to NBA number two. NBA number two is not a rapper, but an NBA player, Jontay Porter. Now, before we jump into this video, let me go and cue the video up. And before I even play the video, shout out to Mike Corinzemba. He actually had a great video that explained this, and that's what we're going to look. So I would definitely want to give credit to the channel. But Jontay Porter essentially is banned from the NBA for life, for gambling, for making bets on games. Now, gambling is legal and damn near everywhere now. It used to just be Vegas. But essentially, what he would do is bet on himself in a parlay. So essentially, if I'm a basketball player, you can say, yo, if I average 5 points, the line may say, are you going to bet that I will score under my average or over my average in points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, or whatever? Now, Jontay Porter wasn't like a top draft pick. I actually think he was an undrafted free agent. So no team drafted him, but some team ended up signing him. But he averages, I think, 15 to 20 minutes a game, but he only averages about 4 to 5 points a game. So, what do you think he bet? Do you think he bet on himself that he was going to score more points or less points? Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Of course, he bet on the one thing he can control, which was the stupidest thing in the world you can bet on. He bet that he would score under his average. Why? Because you can control that. If I only average 5 points and I bet $100,000 that I'm going to score below my average, I can miss every goddamn shot. I could turn the ball over. I could get blocked because I'm not putting a lot of effort in. You can control going over. Now, if he would have made a bet like, yo, okay, I'm betting that I'm going to score over my average, I think that would be much harder. It would be much harder to actually prove that it's actually shady and fraud. But I also think it would be much harder to actually execute because he's a bottom tier player. He averages 4 points. What are the chances that the coach is going to allow him an opportunity to be out on the floor throwing games? So let's go ahead and cue up this video because I want y'all to see what this dude did. And after we see what he did, I'm going to explain how the NBA picked up on it. And then we can evaluate, was NBA player Jontay Porter a little bit foolish, or was NBA Youngboy more foolish? This is a tough one. I'm sitting here thinking about it. I still don't know which way I'm gonna go, but let's go ahead and cue this video up so we can check this out. He just got a stupid look on his face too. That's hilarious. That still image. He just got this dumbass look on his face. Let's go to that one right there.
What happens if an NBA player is caught gambling on a game he actually played in? Well, on March 25th, it was flagged that Jontay Porter may have purposely rigged the betting on his own personal player prop bets to ensure that he would hit the under in 3 separate games this season, as in each of these games, Jontay asked out early due to some injury or another. However, the story here goes much deeper than you might think, as the more you dig into it, the more you find that several games this season, more than just the Grizzlies, Clippers, and Kings, Porter hit the under in his prop bets and seemingly did not try to play basketball at all. The way you are watching him put in effort towards rebounding on screen would get a lot of players cut from the league, and posts have sprung up such as Jontay Porter has an X and Discord service where he shares speculative stock tips and likes gambling posts. The stakes for this scandal are extremely high, as gambling rings typically do not include just 3 games, and they also do not typically include just one single player. This has happened in the NBA before. Way back in the 1950s and 60s, Jack Molinas was a rookie all-star, but then was banned from basketball after a college point shaving scandal that involved 50 players from 27 different teams. Jack Molinas was later killed at the age of 43, with the police not ruling out a mob-related murder. His business partner was also beat to death. So understandably, Adam Silver has made it very clear recently, stating, "I have an enormous range of discipline available to me, but it's a cardinal sin what he's, Jontay Porter, accused of in the NBA, and the ultimate extreme option I have is to ban him from the game." The NBA has made it clear there is no tolerance here. Players such as Ja Morant had gun charges. They were let back. Miles Bridges assaulted a woman, allowed back. Ron Artest and Steven Jackson attacked fans in the stands, allowed back. Gambling on games, you are gone. This is needed, especially because the rise in sports gambling has given new avenues for potential rigging of bets, such as the case with Jontay Porter, who has been accused of throwing his prop bets. What's up, Mike here? And the thing is, while 3 specific games...
All right, so hey, y'all make sure y'all check out that channel too that I mentioned prior to watching that video. He actually got some pretty good content related to sports and other topics. But long story short, let's look at how much money was made, how much money was lost, and how this ended up getting on someone's radar. Okay, let's start with the stupidest thing about this. Let's look at Jontay Porter's NBA earnings versus how much he made personally from gambling. Personally, from gambling, he made, let's round it up, 22 million. It's like, no, he made $22,000 personally from gambling. $22,000. His NBA earnings were $2.3 million. So I'm gonna just be honest. When we talking about which fraud is stupider, NBA young boys or this guy's fraud is way stupider, and I'll talk about why later. Some of the things that were a big red flag we saw in the video was this guy again. He bet on himself not to hit his averages and points, rebounds, and assists because you can control that. He went out. He would check out with a tummy ache. Oh, I don't feel good, so he didn't play. One of the biggest red flags was a $80,000 bet that was placed for one of these games that he wouldn't make his target. If that bet would have hit, luckily that bet didn't get paid out. But if it did, the individual who made that bet would have made $1.1 million. So it looks kind of sketch. This dude is screwed because, again, and during his NBA career, he made $2.3 million. Now, I'm guessing his options will be going to go play overseas. But I'm going to just be honest. If you made 4 points in the NBA, you probably aren't going to play in a top tier league overseas. I mean, I don't know. He might, but the way the game has evolved, foreign players are better than American players. I just would be shocked if he could get on like a top tier, top level A1 foreign league to play basketball as someone in the NBA who couldn't score 5 points a game. But both of these matters. NBA player Jontay Porter made $22,000 from betting on games that he played in and had an NBA salary combined earnings of $2.3 million. And he's banned from the NBA for the rest of his life. It's no coming back. No, he might have to go to the big three or something like that. NBA Youngboy wanted to go on a promethazine and codeine binge, and he couldn't get access to the dark web apparently. So he decided to obtain information illegally of pharmacists and essentially set up bogus prescriptions, calling in, disguising his Louisiana hardcore rapper voice as a 60 to 70-year-old white woman from Utah. And he ended up, again, about to get his federal probation revoked probably next Monday or Tuesday. And he's looking at 63 state charges. Well, the question is, which one of these is dumber? Which one is dumber? Okay. Now, I guess, it would define. I'm an attorney. How do you define dumb for something like this? So I guess there's a couple of things. We're looking at the complexity of the scheme. As far as the complexity of the scheme, they're both equally dumb. Like, you can't have people who are in close proximity to you placing bets on games that you participated in where it just looks shady as hell. Trying to disguise your voice when you sound like Lil Wayne to sound like Betty White is borderline. It's absolutely stupid as shit. Okay, so both are equally dumb, but I think the one that's the dumbest would have to be the NBA player Jontay Porter. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking like, well, why would the NBA player be dumb? Unless at least he has an option to play in another league. That's true. But typically, as an artist who has, let's just keep it a buck. If you're a hip hop artist who make hardcore music and you actually have a track pattern of having charges with guns and drugs and lean and syrup and all of these other things, going into custody, as crazy as it is, it actually might increase your sales. Youngboy not putting out albums, he not performing. He makes the most of his money through streaming sales. I've seen artists put out whole albums, recording them shits on a phone from prison. Not to mention, he's sitting in his house in Utah, sipping on his lean and scissor. It's funny how the article scissor or whatever you want to call it. He probably has a catalog of music that he could put out music for the next 2 or 3 years. So even though he's taking a seat, he's sitting down, his fans are going to be clamoring for his music because part of his persona of who he is associated with violence, is associated with drugs. So as crazy as it is, I think both schemes were equally dumb as hell, but I think the bigger financial impact is probably going to be a negative one for the NBA player as opposed to NBA Youngboy, because I just think as a rapper, I don't think going into custody is necessarily the end of your career. Now he is looking at sitting down for a long time, a decade. That's just on the federal charges, not even counting these state charges. But I do think he'll have the ability for a period of time to continue to make a lot of music or put out music that he's already made and make some revenue doing streaming from his streaming. So y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Y'all let me know, was the NBA player stupider or NBA Youngboy the rapper stupider? Which one y'all think? I'm leaning towards the NBA player. Both fraud models were stupid as hell, but I think the NBA players was a little bit dumber just because I think his ability to make the same income that he made in the NBA is ruined for life. I think NBA Youngboy can still have a year, 2, 3, if he has a catalog of music he didn't put out because he makes all his money mostly through streaming where he can still make money. Yo, that's it for this video. We're going to give y'all something later on this week. I'm going to have to jump back on. I got to get back on my consistency game. New job, chaperoning kids, vacation, potentially having a squatter in New York City and the property that I'm going to have to deal with. It's all getting crazy. I'm going to have to do a video to update y'all on that squatter situation, let y'all know how that came about. Again, make sure y'all like, subscribe, share this video, comment, interact. And if you enjoyed this video, you'll enjoy whatever content pops up on the screen after this. Peace.